Objection number one, and in no particular order of importance or how often you'll hear them, don't know why I started with this one. I'm just randomly putting them on. But I will tell you this, number 10, I don't have the money, is probably number one, and we're going to do it last. So it's probably the most important one. It is the one you'll hear the most. So in no random order until maybe we get to the very last one, let's start with sending a stranger my money. Oh my goodness, Sean, why would I want to send a stranger my money? I just can't quite get over that. So let's go ahead and remember, since this is video number one, make sure that you download the link below of the actual script that we're going to be using. Now remember, very long script. I want you to cut some things out of there. I want you to revamp it. But when we get done with this, I need you to be taking notes, and I need you to, I'm going to show you how to turn this into bullet points so that you can practice it and memorize it. So first things first, why would I send a stranger my money? Let's go ahead and listen to the audio call, and then we'll come right back and we will dissect this here. So,
yes, but sending a stranger money?
Well, you're right, Miss Prospect. I really struggled with that myself when I jumped on board with this and moved forward. You should never do anything that you're not comfortable with, and I understand that. This is not about the money, and I do realize this takes a certain degree of trust, but this is all about me training you on how to make this work. Do you remember the part of the website that talked about the one-up system?
Yes, I sure do.
Well, that's the part that helps to eliminate a person just running off with your money. Not to say that it never happens, but I will never see that one-time one-up if I was to just run off with your money. That's the beautiful part of the system. It forces me to train you up super efficiently because, honestly, that's the same way you'll want to do every single cash gifter you get in from here on out. There's something about a few $1,000s cash coming in each week that places a little accountability inside of all of us. The one-up system gives me a chance to double my money the same way it will you too. The more time I spend training with you, the more successful we'll both be at this.
Okay.
You'll not only have my cell phone, home phone, and home address, but we'll get to know each other fairly well over the next few years. Even though we won't be financially connected in any way, I'm always friends with all my cash gifters. And going back to your money to a stranger question, do you remember the part of the website that talked about the tax advantages?
Yes, and I think I understand that.
Well, that's probably one of the main reasons we keep companies and corporations out of this. If we keep it on a people helping people basis, we all come out winning in the end. Is there anything else you're concerned about here?
wow. I told you we were going to be having some fun with these, didn't I? Okay, you're going to be getting some bold calls. Now, no, maybe that caller that I was speaking with sounds all nice and sweet, but you are going to be getting some bold calls. So you do get the general point of sending a stranger my money is the general area that we're going in. So in this step, let's go ahead and start like we're going to be doing with all the other objections. Let's go ahead and dissect what the prospect said and what I said in response to kind of give you really the best feel of why I say what I do, because I'm constantly worried about what the prospect is thinking of me and overcoming the objections in a nice, warm, likable way. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. I printed mine off, and I encourage you to print yours off or where you can see it on your screen. You're right, Mr. Prospect. I really struggled with that myself, or Miss Prospect in this matter. When I jumped on board with this and moved forward, I struggled with that as well. Remember earlier in Module 1 where we talked very severely of agreeing with the prospect and consoling in them and then pulling out those next objections? That's exactly what we're doing here, only we're going one degree further. We're going to do a very gentle storytelling in there to cut through the fog. Now, since our first video, let me remind you that this script is probably way longer than you're going to want to say. You don't want to talk too much to the prospect. all these scripts that you're actually going to be hearing in the audio versions down below are really lengthy. They're not necessarily built for you to say, and I'm going to explain that here in just a second. So with that said, I want you to take your notes on your script, because there's some things you're going to reword and cross out, and we're going to turn those into bullet points. You are only going to memorize simple bullet points, because I don't care what anybody says, you got to get really good at reading a script before it doesn't sound like you are reading a script. So we've got to get around that, and I'll tell you exactly how to do so with taking our little Cliff Note bullet points of the summary and just memorizing those. That way you can naturally speak, you can naturally overcome the objections, pull them out naturally, and then naturally close them out at the end. So let's get started. Okay, the first one, I agreed with the prospect. Yes, sending money to a stranger is pretty crazy, Miss Prospect, and you should never do anything that you're not comfortable with. This is not about the money, and I do realize that it takes a certain degree of trust. This is all about me training you on how to make this work. So notice when I said I agreed with the prospect, and I said, because I care for the prospect, I said you should never do anything that you're not comfortable with. And then I throw in, I threw in I care about you enough to tell you don't do this if you're not comfortable with it. And then I go on to say, because this is not about the money. And it's really not. I'm not telling the prospect a story, not telling the prospect a fib at any time. I'm interlacing it with a personal story. And I do realize this takes a certain degree of trust. In other words, if you don't trust me right now, it's okay. It's okay right now. I'm telling them, consoling with them. All right, moving on. Do you remember the part of the website that talked about the one-up? Now, why in the world, Sean, would you go and change the subject right now? Just follow me. I'll show you exactly what we do. Remember the part of the system about the one-up? Now, if your opportunity doesn't work on a one-up, then you'll have to ad-lib in something positive about your system that has some degree of trust hinted in with it, like the one-up system does. It's a big trust level. And I throw this in to tell a little story about the opportunity to not only gain the trust, to let them know that it's not about the money, and here's why, but I'm going to totally flip it around into a positive. So let's keep going. Do you remember the part of the website that talked about the one-up system? Well, that's the part that helps to eliminate a person just running off with your money. And to say, not to say that it doesn't happen, I always throw that in, just brutal honesty. People like that, little hint of controversy there. I will never see that one-time one-up if I just run off with your money. That's the beautiful part of the system. In other words, I'm giving confidence and authority that this is why I chose this system, because they've got their stuff in order. That's the beautiful part of the system. It forces me to train you up super efficiently, because honestly, that's the same way you will do with all your cash gifters that you get in from here on out. From here on out. You're going to see in a lot of my scripts that I nonchalantly throw in that they are interested. I nonchalantly throw in that they are going to be a part of this, like they've already decided to join inside. I am assuming that, without saying it too bluntly, I am assuming from here on out that they are going to go ahead and jump on board with the opportunity. You are not manipulating someone when you do this. Not at all. Don't feel like you're doing that. You would be manipulating someone if you were a whole lot more bold with this. But you're going to notice in my scripts, several times throughout the scripts, that I say, kind of a welcome aboard. This is the way I'm doing it is the same way you're going to be doing it from here on out. That gives the confidence of what I'm doing, the authority. I've hit on lots of those 12 items that we went over with just a few minutes ago, but that's the same way you'll be doing from the here on out. There's something about a few $1,000s cash coming in each week. I'm giving dreams and aspirations. They're like, ooh, a few $1,000s cash coming in? Well, maybe I do want to be doing this the rest of the way out. That places a little accountability inside of all of us. Now I'm bending all the way back around to that trust factor. Now I've told her that this is why the one-up system is the way it is. If I run off with your money, then I'll never see your one-up, and I'd end up shooting myself in the foot, which makes no sense, does it? And the prospect's thinking, yeah, that kind of doesn't make sense. And then I go on to say, this is the same way you would be doing it from here on out, because that's the way the beautiful system. I threw in some adjectives there, some great positives to the system. And then I tell them about the accountability inside, why people don't run off with the money. Not to say it doesn't happen. Little bit of, tidbit fact of information, because it does happen, and I've seen it happen. The accountability inside of all of us. That's why we as a common community team do what we do with this beautiful system, and I've just nonchalantly answered the trust factor. The OneUp system gives me a chance to double my money the same way it will you too. The more time I spend training you, the more successful we'll both be at this. I just gave a ton of why would I want to run off with your money objections answering. You'll not only have my cell phone, home phone, and I said home address on there because I used my home address for quite some time. Yes, I did end up going over to a UPS store location just for safety's sake. There's some crazy people out there in the world, but I threw in home address. But we'll get to know each other fairly well over the next few years. In other words, you're saying years, plural, because this is an ongoing relationship of people helping people. And then I worried about what she was thinking about me. Is she thinking, am I going to owe this guy for years? No, you're not going to owe me, because not only will we know each other for the next few years, even though we're not financially connected. That means you're off on your own. I have you trained up. Now we're happy with the cash rolling in, and we're not financially connected at all. You're keeping all your cash like I had promised. That's the beauty of the OneUp system. I'm friends with all my cash gifters. I'm giving community and social proof there. Now, of course, I would go on to give a little more social proof as we move closer in closing the deal out. But, okay, next, and I'm going back to your money to a stranger question. Even though, yes, I've already answered the hound out of that. Why would I send cash to a stranger? I've just answered it back directly. I kind of make it sound like I don't mean to be answering it, but it's such an obvious answer. I want to go back to your question again. And going back to your money to a stranger question, do you remember the part of the website that talked about the tax advantages? Now, you can pick anything. Do you remember the part of the website that talked about this or this? It doesn't have to be tax advantage. This is for example purposes only. And I gave this example in just about all of them just to give one example that gifting has in common no matter what opportunity you're in. So notice that she just said, very simply said, gosh, there's lots of ways people will phrase it to you. Gosh, Sean, essentially you're asking me to send cash to a stranger, you that I really don't even know. Well, you really don't know that person on eBay you send money to. You really don't know who's running that company that you're buying your vitamins from right now. The list goes on and on. You normally, probably 99% of the time, you're giving your money to a stranger. You don't know the cashier down at the local supermarket or anything either, but even though they're not keeping your money, you're still handing your cash over to a company. You don't know those people. You get their products. Same thing, okay? Notice I didn't throw that in because that could be so simple that it would insult the prospect. Not that you can't use it after you've said some of these things. You can write that down as some of your bullet points. That's what our bullet points are going to be soon for. You'll understand that here in a second. But notice how she said, gosh, I'm sending money to a stranger, and you say you agree. First thing, always, if you can, if it's the question is set up for agreeing with, always agree. Yeah, I really struggle with that too. My story is I thought my wife was just gonna strangle me if I sent money into a stranger. That was the craziest thing she'd ever thought of. That's a little bit of story that you can use in there. Now, I agreed with her, and I said you should never do anything you're not comfortable with. In other words, I care for your outcome on this too. Don't send me money if you're not comfortable with it. I don't want your money. It's not about the money though. Blah, 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 blah. I go through and I answer it in a conversational style of matter-of-factly speaking, and then I say matter-of-factly, going back to your question on money to a stranger, do you remember the part of the website? And I give a positive part of the website and I try to pick one that rarely has any objections affiliated to it. That's all positive, no matter what. Whether that's the testimonial of this person that's been averaging $5,000 to $10,000 a week, or it's that tax advantage opportunity, or the tax advantage portion, of the website towards whatever portion it is in your opportunity. But notice how I nonchalantly just bent everything around, and I wait for a response, because you've got to be a good listener. They may go off on a tangent about certain things throughout, but well, that's probably one of the main reasons we keep companies and corporations out of this. If we keep it on a people helping people basis, we all come out winning at the end. Did you notice that I just threw my own little objection in there? I just asked a question she may not even realize she had. And that is a beautiful thing of, if you can put bullet points in just like this, and you can answer something and just bury that objection. I mean, slam dunk it through the hoop, and then all of a sudden, don't sit there and let the birds chirp. Bring up another objection that has a positive answer to it already. And by the way, here's something really cool, Miss Prospect. Do you remember that part of the website that had the tax advantages to it? Well, yeah, I do kind of remember that. I think I understand that. Well, here's why we do that. And all of a sudden, you've taken that original objection and you've turned it into this bright, glistening pie in the sky. And I don't mean to say that in the wrong way, but you've just made the awesome sauce on top of the whole opportunity for what you've done. Yeah, there's other objections before they send cash to you. Probably. Not always, but probably going to be some more. So you always end it out, is there anything else you're concerned about? Now, on one of the ebooks on one of these you're going to see here really soon, this isn't persuading anyone. This is overcoming objections, making them comfortable with you, the whole opportunity, and then everything just comes together. So don't take me wrong by saying any kind of persuasion. The ebook talks about persuasion. I'm not approving of you persuading anybody per se. It just doesn't have a good ring to it if you ask me. But you'll notice in one of those ebooks of something I use very powerfully of, I don't want you to leave this empty-handed. That puts a little bit of scarcity and guilt, if you will, on the prospect. So I may have ended this call like you'll see in some of the next videos of, well, Miss Prospect, Miss Prospect, is there anything else that you're concerned about here that I can answer for you? My main job is, and you can be writing some of these notes down, guys, because they're not on this. My main job is to just load you full of information so you can make your own intelligent decision about this. Write that down. Miss Prospect, my only job here is to load you full of information so you can make your own intelligent decision about this. Now, if you want to throw in there like the ebook, one of the ebooks you'll read here that I use, another phrase I use, I just don't want you to leave this empty-handed. That's like dropping a lead brick on them. They're like, oh yeah, I don't want to leave this empty-handed. Works great. Okay, we've dissected this just a little bit now, like we will with all the other scripts as we go through. You see why I said what I did? Now you've got just a little bit of homework on this objection right here. All of them actually down below, but here's how you'll do your homework. I want you to print this off if at all possible, or if you know how to copy and paste it over to a Microsoft Word or some kind of editing program and you can type up your own. I want you to take, and I can't do it for you because you may not be comfortable saying some of the things that I do. You take each one of these scripts that say a little too much, you summarize them, but keep the powerful turns inside of them. And that's really all you have to memorize. Memorize those. So why would I send a stranger money? Well, the first thing you've got to know, and you can write this down if you want to, but always agree with them first off. But then start taking some of these bullet points. Don't do anything you're comfortable with. It's not about the money. Second bullet point. Let's see here. Let's see. Do you remember the part of the website about the one-up system? Whatever has a little bit of degree of trust that goes with it. I like the one-up system because it does have a lot of degree of trust, even though that trust does get broken sometimes in our industry, in our opportunity, excuse me, but I like to use that analogy there. So write that down as a bullet point. Your next one may have, you'll have all my contact information, and then go back to X. And you may have just a small, what you can count on one hand, of bullet points there, and what you're going to do is you're going to take your notes and you're going to memorize those bullet points. And in fact, I want a friend or family member, whatever it is, to call out these to you. And I want you to practice the objections with them. And here's what's going to end up happening. When someone says something roughly to that degree, you are, and I promise, you are going to be blown away at how you professionally just handled that objection, answered that objection, and bent it around to an overall positive. And that's amazing, because some of these objections that we're going to be going through, like this sounds like a scam, or I don't have enough money, what you might be doing right now is, can I call you back when you have enough money? Or, well, I'm sorry, it sounds like a scam to you. And then click, they eventually just hang up on you. So, excuse me, I'm going to show you how to handle these objections, dissect them, put them in your own bullet points, so that when you're talking to the person, you've got that number one thing on our 12-point list. You've got the authority backed up by the confidence right there. So when you go to attack that, you immediately say, no, Miss Prospect, I completely disagree with you. Of course, you're going to agree, and then you're going to give the reasons why, but you're going to be able to do it with confidence. So that's your homework on this particular objection. So go ahead and knock them out, and when you get ready, move on to the next video and download the script first, and we'll do the same thing on the next one. And we've got several more to go.